started with the session. Okay, so we are on now. So yesterday we created the client using Wait. We added Tailwind, and I used the exact same design that we've had for Charity Minds before, the forms, the registration form, the login form, registration form, but they're not functional. So we also went through using Postman. Using Postman to interact with our existing API endpoint. So I believe I deployed this. I deployed this in yesterday's session on render, and it should work. So let me just confirm that it actually does work still. Yeah, so this is the thing with render. It always shuts down after some time of inactivity. So every fast request must take a minute or two. Well, not really a minute. I don't know how long it takes. Maybe a few seconds. So it's working fine. And we had the endpoint for API slash v1 slash users. And right now it only has that one user that we created in yesterday's session. Well, this actually tells me something. This tells me that you guys have not yet connected this new API with your applications, because if you had, and the registration you had simulated the registration, the data that you had added will show up here. So I needed to test it, to test this API endpoint with your existing applications. So this one we created with Postman. I'm going to do the exact same thing. This is John Wick. So send that request. Should get back a 201 created. And if I go to the users, the list of users, and I get John Wick there as well. So that is what we're going to be doing in today's session. So instead of using Postman to interact with our backend, we're going to set it up such that our form, our register form, which is not running. So application has routing set up. We have the register form. Right now it doesn't do anything because we've not given it the instructions. We've not written the code for what happens when the form is filled by the user. And that's what we're going to be doing in today's session. And then we are going to also begin the process of creating the backend. So this register form, everything is going to be in here. since everything we need is contained within this component, so we are going to be working in the register form component. And the first thing that we need to do is to turn the form from being just a normal form to being what's called a control form, such that it gets handled by React. So this has a lot of fields, and so the way that I'm about to show you is not the best way. There are libraries that exist that allow you to work with React forms in a much better way, when it comes to validation, when it comes to handling the state in a much better way. So what I'm going to be demonstrating in this session is a way that works, but it's not the best way. So whenever you build in software, in most cases, you will start with what works, especially if you're still in the learning phase. You will build what you know. So you'll not try out building the most optimized application. Okay, so optimization always comes after you've got it to work. Never optimize prematurely. So, excuse me. So what we're going to be doing is just using what's called state. We're going to be creating state variables for each of these fields. And then we're going to turn these input fields into controlled inputs in such a way that the update of the values within the inputs depends on the state variable. So this will be our first interaction with state. And which hook, Brian Onyambu, which hook do we use whenever we are dealing with local state? Anyone?
Is it the React use state hook?
Correct. It's the use state hook. So let's take this first one as an example, the first name. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a state variable for it. And the thing about the use state hook is that it returns an array. So this array that the use state hook returns contains two things: the value of the state variable, and the second element in that array is the function that updates that variable. So we could have in here, so fname for first name state, and we say that this is going to be the use state hook, and the initial value for first name will be, let's say, John. Okay, this use state is a function, and that's what hooks are. They're just functions. So we are calling this function, we are passing it an argument. The argument in this case is John, and if you pass an argument to the use state hook, that argument that you've passed, that value that you've passed, becomes the first value, the first default value of the state variable. So we've said that this use state function returns an array. So if we were to log this fname state using the console log, just so that we can see it, we will get to see in our console. So for now, ignore this, or maybe we can change them. So for every place we have class, we're going to replace with class name. Let's replace all. Okay. Then the for, we also need to replace the fors with HTML4. So in the label, this because the reason why this happens is because remember right now we're in JavaScript land, we're in a JavaScript file. So anything that is reserved within JavaScript gets a different name. So instead of class, because class is a keyword, it's a JavaScript keyword. In JSX, you use class name instead of for. For is a keyword for the for loop. So instead of for, we get to use HTML, HTML4 in the labels. That's going to get rid of our errors. So we still have class. This is in the header. So we have to do, let me just have it in here. Actually, we can use this, search for class, we replace with class name. So it's going to sort every file that exists. It's going to get rid of them, of the errors. So what we are logging right now is what is returned by the useState hook. And you can see that the useState hook returns a stateful value and a function to update it. But the thing about what is returned is that it is returned as an array. And if you look at the function signature over here, you'll see that what is wrapped, what we have here is an array. The first value being a string, the second value being this react.dispatch, react.setStateAction string. So what that means is that if we were to log, which is what we've done, if we were to log the fname state, we're going to see an array with two items, the first with two elements, the first element being the value of the state variable, second element being so second element being a function whose purpose is to update the value of the state variable. So given that, you'll rarely find this syntax going on whenever state is involved. But it's important to understand this because then that leads us to the next thing, the way that it's actually the syntax that you will come across in a lot of cases, which is the destructuring of the array that is returned by the useState. We've said that the first element in that array is the value of the state variable, and the second element is a function, the function that is responsible for updating the value of the state variable. So that array, we can destructure it and give a name to those two things. The first one, because arrays are based on order. So the first thing, the first name that you give here is the name that will be given to the value of the state variable. So in our case, the default value for the state variable here will be John, because that is what we've given as the default. And then the second element in that array is the function that is responsible for setting the value of the state variable. And so in most cases, you'll find that that function has been called set whatever this is. So in this case, this is first name. And so its function, it's the function that is responsible for setting it, gets given the name set first name. And this is what's called convention. It is not a rule. You can give this to things anything really. You can call this F and we call this as F, and it's still going to work. So the naming is just convention, that whatever you name the value, you name its function set, then the name of the variable, of the state variable. So in this case, we want to deal with this. We want to turn this input field into a controlled input field by using the state variable. So we're going to have first name there. So because we do not want to have a default for the user is the one that's going to be responsible for filling the value. We're not going to give this a default value. So first name right now, if we use it like that, where is this coming from? Oh, okay, from the console log. So let's remove that. So if we want to turn this input field into a controlled input, what we will do is we're going to give it a value. So the value of it will be whatever the state variable contains. Now, the moment you do this, you are turning this input field into a controlled field. You're giving, it's like you're snatching control away from HTML and giving it to React, because this, the idea of state, that's a React thing, that's a JavaScript thing. And so when you give the value of an input to be whatever the value of this variable is, you are shifting control of this input field. And now the input becomes fully controlled by this state. So React becomes in charge of this particular input field. Now, the moment you do that, the moment you turn an input field into a controlled variable, into a controlled field, then actually here you can see an error. A component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. This is likely caused by the value changing from undefined to a defined value, which should not happen. Decide between using a controlled or uncontrolled input element for the lifetime of the component. Now, the reason why we're getting that error is because of this. Now, we provided a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler, but we're going to get there. We're going to add an onChange handler that is going to be responsible for now listening for the change of this input field, because right now as it is, we have given its value to be whatever the value of this first name is, which by default is an empty string. Now, it doesn't matter what the user types, this is not going to respond. Right now I'm banging on my keyboard, but it's not responding, unlike this other input field that is still uncontrolled. Okay, so that one is working, but this one isn't, because now the way that the value of this is updated is fully dependent on the value of this first name. And so we need to add the logic that is going to then update the value of this first name based on the input, on the change of this input field. And that is why this warning here, this error here, tells us that we are providing a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. So whenever you have a controlled input, you have to have an accompanying onChange handler. And that onChange handler is the one that is responsible for then handling the change of the input value. So we're going to call that, and what it will receive will be a callback function. So this callback function, what it's going to be responsible for is just calling the set first name and giving a certain value. So this for now we're just going to set as new value. Now what that is going to do is the moment I type this, so I am typing right now, but what we get, so you see the moment we added the onChange handler, the error goes. But because of the way that we've added, we just set new value as the new value of first name, because we're calling this set first name function. And we say the purpose of this is to set the value of the state variable. So right now that value that we're setting is just this string new value. So whenever I start typing, so I'm going to press my keyboard there once. This new value is this onChange handler will be executed, which will call this callback function. This callback function will call this function. When this function is called, this argument will be passed to this function. When this argument is passed to this function, that argument becomes the new value of the state variable. When that state variable gets updated, then it becomes the new value of this input field, because the value of the input field is tied to the state variable, and that is why we end up seeing new value right here. Now this doesn't make sense, because as the user, it doesn't matter what the user types, every time the only thing that this input will ever have is new value. But we want it to contain the values that the user is keying in. And so the way to go about that is on the onChange handler, there's an argument that is passed when this callback function is executed, and that is the event, which we're going to be calling E. Now this E contains a property within it called target, and that target is an object that contains another property, and that property is value. So if we log e.target.value, we are going to see that, you can see as I type, let me comment this out for now. So as I type, you can see the keys that I am pressing. So right now I'm just going through my keyboard keys. This is a QWERTY row. So you can see the different letters as I type them, because that is what is contained within this e.target.value. So this e.target.value is what we want to set as the new value of the of this first name. So we call this set first name function, but instead of passing just this default new value string, we pass the e.target.value. What that does is that now, as the user types, whatever it is that they are typing gets set as the new value of the state variable, and as the state variable updates, so does the value of the input field. So now we have a fully controlled input field whose value is contained within the state variable. So that is how you use controlled inputs for this. And this is something that we are now going to do for each and every one of these input fields. So we have the first name, last name, username, and all of that. So I'm just going to duplicate this several times. I'm not sure how many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is going to be to be last name. This is going to be username. Email, phone number, date of birth, gender. Email, phone number, date of birth, gender, DOB, gender, this is password, confirm password, should be camel case. Okay, then we're going to duplicate this exact thing, so the value and the unchanged for each of these input fields. There are some extensions that I'm missing that are supposed to make these a lot easier. Yeah, much better. This selector shall come back to it. Did I not create one for confirm password? Confirm password, confirm password. What's going on? Oh, it's got three S's. The details. Well, that's very, very important. Okay, so we've turned every input field into a controlled input field, and they should all be working. Okay. So right now, doing the zeros from a previous render. So right now, we should ideally have, as the user is entering these values in this form, we should have access to all of those values in this state, in these state variables. Now I have to mention it again, this is not the best way to go about working with forms, but it's a way that works, and it's the way that we're going to start, and then we shall optimize over time. So just having the input fields in a controlled as controlled inputs doesn't really help us handle the form. We still need to handle the submission of this form. So submission is handled through an onSubmit handler, and the onSubmit handlers, they take as an argument callback functions. So we're going to create that callback function right here, handle submit. It's going to be an arrow function. And for now, all it's going to do is it's going to log that form has been submitted. So it's always good to test your functions. You create a function, make sure that you test it first before you even write what it's supposed to do. So this handle submit function is going to be called upon the submission of this form. So we can add an onSubmit handler just like that, and that's going to call the handle submit function. So with that, we can click the this, and don't know that you can see it, but we get the log right here. It's happening really quick. So to make it happen a bit slower, what we can do is we can throttle down to 3G, then we go back to console, and the moment I do that, you can see that the form has been submitted is logged just before the page reloads. Now this is happening because of the default behavior of forms. When forms are submitted, they cause a page refresh as the data is being submitted to wherever the data has been given to be submitted. In our case, we've not stated where the data is supposed to be submitted, and so by default it is submitted to the current page, and that is why we are seeing this behavior whereby the page is reloading. So to do that, or rather to prevent that, because we don't want the default behavior of forms to be the case, because we are handling everything to do with this form using JavaScript. So you want to prevent the default behavior of forms. So this callback function, similar to the one that we added on the onChange handler, it receives an event argument. So we add that parameter over there, and what we can do is that when this function is called, the callback function is executed, we can prevent default So that should be prevent default. It's a method within the event object, and this is going to prevent that default behavior that we've just seen goes on when a form is submitted. And now when we submit, we don't see the form reloading, and we see our console logs just maintaining in the console. So that is the first thing you should do when you're handling the submission of forms. You prevent the default behavior of that form. Now, once we have this, we can then get all our data and log it as an object. So first name, last name, username, email, phone, first name, last name, username, email, phone, date of birth, DOB, gender, password, and confirm password. Now we are logging this object just so that we can see that all our data is there. So the moment we do that now, we get our object, but they're empty because we've not filled any data. So I just quickly fill this data, pick any date here. Now when we submit the data, we get the username. The only thing we don't get is the phone. It's because the phone is empty. Let's actually just fill it with an actual phone number. Okay, so we get the confirm password, we get the date of birth, we get the email, we get the first name, gender, last name, password, phone, and username. So in our state variables, we have access to the data that we then need to send to our backend in a similar way that we did there using Postman. So that is the first thing. You need to get this data before you can send it. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove this console log and create a data object from it. So if we now log the data, it should contain that variable. So we should see the exact same thing. We clear the console, log it again. That's what we get. Good. So the next thing now will be to just initiate the request that is going to get this data, send it over to the URL in the backend. And the way that we initiate requests with JavaScript is one of the ways is using fetch. So we're going to take advantage of fetch, the fetch function, and that fetch function we need to give it the same values that we are giving the Postman. Postman, we gave it the method, we gave it the URL, we gave it the data. And remember yesterday I mentioned that with this, there's also something called headers. And one of those headers that we absolutely must give is this content type. So we're going to do the exact same thing, but now this time programmatically using code, using our client, the React application. So we'll call fetch. Fetch takes in as the first argument the URL of where you're sending this data. This is it. This is the URL that we want to send this registration data to. Then it takes in some options. And the options come in the form of an object. One of those options is the method. And the method for this is post, because the kind of request that we are making is a post request. Another option that this gets is the headers, and the headers are also an object with content type whose value is application stroke JSON. And with that, with those three things, we are almost there. The last thing that we need to then add is the body. And for that, we're going to have the body key right there. Now, the thing is, this body cannot be transported as an object. It must be, the only way it can be sent over the network is as a string. And so we take advantage of the JSON methods, specifically the stringify, to turn this data from being a normal object to being a JSON string. So we call JSON the method stringify, and we pass our data. The moment we do that, this is now no longer, the body is not an object, it is a JSON string. So with those, we have given the things that are required for us to send a request the same way that is sent with Postman. We've given the method, we've given the URL, we've given the body, and we've given this content type header. So we're going to test it. We're going to see whether it actually does what it's supposed to do. So I will save this, then I'll go back to our application, I had my machine make certain sound. I don't know what caused that. So we're going to have this open right here just so that we can monitor for any potential errors, because we have nothing else. We've not given any kind of feedback in the application. And so the only way that we will know if there's an issue or not is by looking at the output of the console. So when I send this, you see nothing, but as a good sign, we also don't see any errors being printed here. Now, because I've not written the code for it, I have no idea of knowing where, or rather whether that particular request has been sent and whether it has gone through successfully from looking at this. But if I go back here and I refresh this endpoint, if it was successful, then I should see the user that has just been created right now. Something tells me it wasn't successful because render will be up, but maybe that request triggered the waking up of the server. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. All right, so I still see two users. Now this means something's not right, and I'm going to inspect the network tab. Now change it from being 3G to no throttling. I will clear these guys from here, just so that I can see what happens when I click create account. So we see a 400 error. That's good. That is a good sign. Now I have no idea why it's a 400 error. This is likely because it's the server that's returning that 400 error. There could be different reasons why. It is not the phone number, because I don't think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Okay, we do not have a 679, so it's not the phone number. I know the phone number needs to be unique. It's not the username, it's not the email. We do not have a mark at cram.codes. So the only thing that could be causing it is the these passwords not matching. And if we look at this post doesn't really give us that information. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the response from this fetch call. We're going to get the response of it, and then we will inspect that response to tell us what exactly the issue is. Now I know this server that I have, it's not very descriptive. The errors might not be the most descriptive errors, but we shall look at the response and see whether this particular one has some description. Now the way that the fetch works, if you hover over it, you can see that it returns a promise, which means this is an asynchronous function. Now we need to handle that the right way. The way that we're going to handle it is using the async await syntax. So you can use the .then, you can use .then.catch, but I prefer to go with async await. So I'll mark this function as async, and when I'm calling this fetch function, I will await the response. So I'll create a variable that is going to be the result of this fetch, but then I await that particular promise, either the resolution of the promise or the rejection. Now if it's going to reject, then I need to handle that rejection by wrapping this in a try catch block. So I will try that code. In the event there's an error, I will catch the error, and for now all I'm going to do is log the error. Okay, now if there's no error, we will get this response, and what we will do is that from the response we're going to get the JSON data that this response contains. So we will have a response data equals, we then await, because the call of the JSON method is also, it also returns a promise, so it's also asynchronous. We await it. Once we have this response data, then we shall log the response data, and I'm just going to have that as an object so that we can know the difference. Actually, this we can do console.error, error, then we have console.log the response data, and with that, let's clear this. I will send the exact same request. We get the same response. It's a bad request, but then we now have this response data. This response data contains a message that passwords do not match. It also contains a key of success is false. So that is the reason why the user account was not created, because the data that is sent for the password and the confirm password, they do not match. Now this server will confirm those things. Now you do not need to send this kind of data to the backend for your application to show, or for your application to know that there is an issue with the password and the confirm password. That is something that can be done on the client side. Now you need validation on both sides. You need validation on the client side and on the server side as well. So right now validation is only happening on the server side. So we're going to add a quick validation just so that we do not get to this part whereby we are sending the response, or rather we are sending the request if the password and the confirm passwords do not match. So we'll just add a quick validation over here. So we'll say that for this we want to validate the password and confirm password. So it's just going to be an easy if statement. So if password is not equal to confirm password, then we want to set an error. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a state variable for errors. So over here, now we can either handle multiple errors at the same time, or we can just handle one error at a time. We're going to handle one error at a time. So not capital, triple R. And initially, there's going to be no value for the error. So we can actually set these as null. So, but once there is once there's an error, we're going to call the set error function, and for this error, we're going to say that passwords do not match. Then, since this is a function that is being executed, we shall return. So the execution of this function will not return when we have a validation, will not continue. The execution will not continue when we have a validation error. It will return, it will stop execution right there. So on our page, somewhere on our page, since right now we're only handling the one validation error, I will add that the response of that error right here, just below the passwords. But ideally, if it's a general possibility error, then you will show it somewhere where it's a bit more general, maybe at the top of the form, or as a toast, either at the bottom or at the top, or as an alert, a modal alert, somewhere in the middle of the page. That's upon you. For now, we're just going to show that error over here because it's just the one. So right after where we have our passwords, don't know about the design because of the grouped. I think I can have it just below that grouped. So this is going to be a conditionally rendered thing. So we'll have if error exists, we will show error, and this is going to be paragraph with text thread 600. So that is only going to show when we have when you have an error. So the other thing that we can validate, I'm not going to do it, but it's because I've seen it's working when the input fields are empty, is just for the existence of the values in this form. So that's another point of validation that you can add. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to add all of that validation logic, because first of all, this is not the best way to deal with forms. But if you're just building something that works, add your if statements on there, set the error. You can maybe have an array as the value of this error, so that if you have multiple errors, you can have them all in the array, and then you display them once. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as that. Then I will test this by having different passwords. So passwords do not match. That's okay. So the other thing that we are going to do is that once this is submitted again, this error needs to clear, because it needs to restart the process. So here at the very top, we will set error to null again. So it goes back to how it was, and it's only later, if the passwords do not match, that the error will get to be set. So what that is going to do is that when I submit, let me now use passwords that match. Actually, it doesn't. I don't know why it took so long. The network still throttling. No, it's not. Let me refresh. So right now, passwords do not match. If I submit with passwords that do match, yeah, so it clears the error. But we still have a response over here. All fields are required, so that is something that's going to come from the backend. But then again, that's validation that you would also have done on the client side without depending fully on the backend to validate. It's just quicker. If you know that all fields are going to be required, then validate on the client, so that you don't need to, because there's some latency when it comes to the request moving from the client to the server, and then the response coming from the server back to the client. So instead of having to wait for that latency time, just validate immediately on the client to tell the client that, hey, these input fields are all required. This email needs to be of this format. This phone needs to be of this format. Your date of birth cannot be past a certain time, if that is a form of validation for you. The passwords must match. So that validation needs to happen on the client and on the server as well. So right now, since the server is doing some form of validation, I'm just going to inspect this response data. So whenever you have this response, there's a very important key just before you get the response data. So if I log the response, this right here is going to be an object. Let me clear that console, send that request. So we can see this response, it's an object, and it has, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, it's right here. So it has the OK field. This OK field is what you'd ideally check to see. It tells you whether everything is okay. That this is your first point, because if an error response is sent back by the server, no matter what the response is, whether it's a 400, whether it's a 500, if it's an error code, then this OK key here will be by default false. So before you even check, or rather before you convert the data that you get from the response into an object, then you want to check the response whether it's okay. So if response is not okay, if not response dot okay, then what we're going to do, because we're still within a try catch, we're just going to throw an error, and we're going to throw it with the message that actually, you know what? Since the backend contains the message, we're not going to throw. We're going to move this over here. Then if not response dot okay, then we'll throw the error, and the error will be the message that is contained within response data under the message key. If that doesn't exist for whatever reason, then we'll just say that there was an issue, there was an error creating your account. Now remember the logical operators. This the use case we've already used the logical operator and down here, and I don't know whether you noticed that. So I hope you still remember how the logical operators work. So here, so if not response dot okay, then we're going to throw a new error. We are within the try catch, so this error that we throw will be caught here, and then we can handle the error right here. So after logging it, what we're going to do is we can just set the error to be now the error dot message. So that means we need to move where we are showing the error, because now this error has become a bit more general. So I'm going to move it from down here to, where do I move it to? Let's move it somewhere at the top there, somewhere at the top of the form. So right here. So with that, whenever there's an error, no matter which error it is, whether it's the error from the backend or just a general error, actually I've just thought of something. I don't know that this is going to work, but let's run it and see. So I send the request, error, all fields are required. Okay, it's working as I initially thought it would. So right here, this is the error that we are logging. Should be on line 62 over here. It is an error that has been caught. It's been thrown over here. That is where we get the message that is coming from the backend. Because if we, let's say, message, and we just add that exclamation. Yep. So that message is now that is coming from the backend here. If the response is not okay, then this is throwing a new error. That error will contain the message, if it exists, from the response data. Because remember, our response data looks like, where is it? Let me move this at the top here. Our response data looks like this. This is our response data. It contains a success and a message. So when this message exists, it is what will be thrown as this error, as the message for this error. If it doesn't exist for whatever reason, if the backend doesn't contain this key, then we will just have a default error that is going to be the message of this error. Once that is thrown, it is going to be caught, and that's why it's called try catch. So the error gets thrown, it gets caught by this block, then this message that was passed as the argument to this error in the constructor will be extracted through the message key. So error is an object, it contains a message key. So that message is then the one that is set as the value for the error state. And once that is set, then this here, error becomes truthy, and so this is shown. And when that is shown, that's how we end up with this. When we submit again, because during submission we're first clearing the error, that is why that message is first disappearing. But then since we still have the problem of that all fields are required, then we get the error showing back up. So once we now fill these details, so the password should match, and we create, then something went wrong. So the response data is giving us, okay, it's a 500 internal cell. So the issue is cause, and it's cause. It just says type cause. Let me look at the logs. Of course, this. Because I know it's not. Oh, okay. Okay. It's this somehow got created at some point. What time was this? 1914. Just right now. So why did it throw an error? Why did it tell me something went wrong? It's likely my mouse. I might have double clicked this button, because right now it's working just fine. Success true. User created successfully. Yeah. Because the backend is set to only allow unique usernames, unique emails, unique phone numbers. The password doesn't matter, the gender doesn't matter, date of birth doesn't matter, first name, last name don't matter. So right now I won't be able to create an account with the same details. Now we will get we will get these 500 internal error, something went wrong. Now that backend doesn't really handle, it doesn't do what's called parsing of the mongoose errors, the errors that originate from having constraints in your database. So the database at mongoose level has those constraints that it can only allow unique username, email, and phone number. So we're going to be seeing that in action. But for now, the registration works. It does what it's supposed to do. So we should see the cram2 over there. You should see cram, and the tool that I had used postman to create. So now let's deal quickly with the situation whereby a user actually gets created. So if we look at this, so this is from 3. There's no feedback. There's no feedback for the user that they are their account has been created. So there's supposed to be feedback. And ideally, once an account is created, you should navigate the user to the login page and you tell them that, hey, your account has just been created, so now just now log in. So that is something that we would want to handle. So so down here, if execution goes beyond the error that is drawn, because if this error is drawn, then execution will not go beyond that point. The flow will shift to this catch block. So if we get down here, it means everything was okay and the user has been created successfully. And so we can navigate the user to the login page. And to programmatically navigate somebody, you take advantage of React Router. So we'll go back to React Router documentations, to docs, navigating. Where is the programmatic navigation? This use navigate. So it is a hook from React Router that we're going to take advantage of, and the route that we will navigate them to is the login route. So hooks need to be defined at the very top. You cannot use them within other kinds of statements. So this is navigate. It should come from use navigate. So use navigate from React Router. I think we'll have to just manually add the import. I don't know why VS Code didn't pick up on it. So this navigate is what we will call just below here. And the route that we're going to be navigating the user to is the login. And we're going to add this key, this parameter right here, so that we can show a message based on the existence of this parameter. So with that, if we come back here and we redo the so this is cram 4. Two, three, four. 2, 3, 4. So once everything goes successful, then we are navigated to Nini. We are navigated. Where did this come from? Something went wrong. Is this from the previous one or is it from right now? Yeah, let me retry that. It's not supposed to be having any errors. From 5. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have no idea why we got the errors in the previous one. So the navigation to the login route is going just fine, and we have this parameter that is set here to just to show that they're coming from register, because somebody might have just navigated to the login. In that case, we'd not want to show them a message. So in the login route, if the register equals true exists, then we're going to show them a message over here that your account was created successfully. Please log in. And maybe just before we do that, something we need to add is during the submission, you can see that I'm able to click this button twice, and sometimes that is bringing problems. So you can even click it like a lot of times here. So that is something that you never want to be possible in your application. So whenever a user takes an action on a form, you want to disable the button that allows them to take the exact same action before a response is received. So we're going to use state for that, and we're going to call this state variable is submitting. So set is submitting. So this is our use state variable, and initially this is going to be false. So if this turns to true, then this button is going to be disabled. So we want disabled to be equal to is submitting. So if this is false, disabled will be false. If this becomes true, then disabled will be true. And whenever we are submitting, then I would want to change these words from being create account to being creating account. So we're going to have conditional rendering. So if is submitting, if that is true, then we're going to have that. If it's not, we're going to have that. So if it is true, if it's submitting, then this is going to be creating account. If it's not true, then this is going to be create account. So right now, since it is not submitting, this should show create account. Now the moment I start submitting, it should change to creating account. But then I'm not handling the change of the state just yet. So I need to handle that. Let me clear that console. So I need to change the state of is submitting. So whenever this function gets called, we clear the error, but we also set the is submitting value to true. Then in the event that there is once this try catch finishes executing, no matter whether it finished successfully or not, we want to set is submitting back to false. If it's completed successfully, then the user will not even be on this page to begin with. They'll have already been navigated. If there was an error, that error will show up but the user will be able to submit again. So if I click now, when there's an error, you can see creating account. And the moment that now the problem is the disabled state doesn't have any. Let me show you right here using this. So this button, the moment you click on it, we can see that it's changing to disabled and then back once the try catch has finally finished the execution. So that prevents the form from getting submitted twice, because that's not good for user experience. It's also not good for you, because if you have a form that's been filled by thousands of users and somebody can just spam the the submit button over and over and over and over again, that's going to overload your server. Now your server should have protections on its side against that kind of a thing, a denial of service, but or some rate limiting. But on the client side as well, you should have these protections. Okay. So, but on the client side, it will mostly be for the user experience, because you've seen, because of the limitations that we have, the constraints that we have on the server, if I click this button twice, the first request is going to go to the server and it's going to create the account. Now the second request is also going to go to the server, but then in the event, in the process of creating that account, it will find the account already exists. So the second request will return an error. So that user will get an error response, but the account was already created. So it's going to confuse them. It's going to be like, the account has been created, but the message that they're seeing on the page is that the account has not been created, because the message that's going to take effect is for the request that came last. And the request that came last didn't go through because the request that came first had already gone through, if that makes sense. So disable your buttons during submission of forms for user experience, for an improved user experience. Now you can also, now the only thing is that you can't, you can also change the styling. So you see over here where you have the styling of the button. Trying to think, because this button has the styles somewhere else, but we can have the class name to be equal to, if is submitting, trying to think how best to go about this, because the styles of this button have been defined in the, we'll have is submitting and disabled. Don't know that this is going to work as I am expecting it to. Let me inspect. Yeah, so we're seeing this class being added to it right there, the class disabled. Okay, so what we're then going to do is in the styles, for the button, right here. So just down here, form button. Actually, we can use disabled. We don't need to add a class over here. Can use the pseudo selector. Then what we're going to do, if it's disabled, we're going to apply we want cursor disabled, cursor stop, cursor not allowed. Yeah, so cursor not allowed. Then we also want to darken this. Oh, for now, let me test the cursor not allowed whether it works. Yeah. Okay. So we don't need to add the disabled class. You can, and then you style it using the disabled class. So instead of this pseudo selector, it will be that. So that will still work the exact same way. But I think I'll stick to just using the pseudo selector, because this, when is submitting is true, disabled is going to be true. If disabled is true, then the styles here will get applied, and the style that is being applied here is this class, this tailwind class, cursor not allowed. Now you can change the styling of this kabisa. Now for this color, I don't know which version of it would let me see. PJ primary over 50. Yeah, perfect. This makes sense for a disabled state. Now the only problem is, see, because of the error, there's that it's a bit jumpy. And this is not good for user experience. It will be best if the error is not causing the form to be a bit jumpy. So I don't know how we're going to solve that. Likely by moving it outside the form and having it at the top here. Oops. That completely messes things up. Auth content. Where is auth content? Auth content flex item center justify center. Flex call. I don't know that this is going to mess with yep. I really don't want to waste too much time thinking about this. How we, again, this actually still doesn't solve the issue. It's still jumpy. So let me return it back here. Undo what we've just done with the auth content. turning it into a column. Then yeah, now it's a problem in my mind that just feels like I need to solve it. What if the paragraph can exist? So we have just an empty div. It seems to be a potential solution, the best solution, because I have to find, this is 40 pixels. 40 pixels is still causing a bit of a jump. But I think something somebody can live with. And there has to be a better way to go about this. I just don't have the mental capacity to think about it right now. Or to even start searching, because this was not the main point of this. That was just a detour. So this makes for better user experience. The disabling of the button, changing it into that disabled state, even changing the styling so the cursor goes from being something that shows that it's clickable to being something that shows that it's not allowed. Changing the background color just communicates better that, hey, this button is no longer clickable, so don't even try to click it. All right. So now we need to go to the login page, handle the existence of the parameter. What was the parameter? The parameter was, I think, register. Yeah. So this parameter, we need to handle it in the login form. So we're going to go to the login form. Then at the very top, we need to get the parameters, and that is also handled through React Router. I don't know where we're going to get that. Is it use params? Okay. So we have here, this is for dynamic segments. Okay, it's not a dynamic segment that I want. I actually want a parameter. But let's see what the params is going to give us. So we're going to have const params equals use params from React Router. Then we'll just log what the params has. If it has nothing, then we'll look for a different solution. Let me clear that. So the param is register equals true. Okay. So it's empty. So I'm guessing that only works for the route segments. So what does work for Which hook? Which hook? Which hook? That it will be. No, this cannot be it. Navigate to another path. Search. Something to do with search. Use search params. Yeah. So search params. Okay, set search params. Signature. So it returns an array with search params and a function to set the search params. Okay, so we will get that, copy it, bring it over here. Oops, did I not copy this? What is going on? No, I cannot mistake them. So search params, set search params equals use search params. It's a hook. A hook is a function. So we call it, then we log the search params. And let's see now what's in there. Size. Come on. So how do you actually get the value? Use search params. Returns a tuple of the current URLs. Use URL search params and a function to update them. Setting the search params causes a navigation. Search params. Damn it. Yeah, there's just the same documentation that was in the um, React router. Get query params. Use search params. Okay. Search params. Ah, we have to use the dot get. Okay. Is that in the documentation? Did I just not see it? Okay, so we have the dot set. Why is it not in the documentation? Yeah, so I guess it has, it's something that we're supposed to infer from then from what the URL search params are. So once you get the search params, then you can call these different methods on it. All right, so we get so dot get, then what we want to get is register. Okay, and to get the value as true. So what is the type of? It's a string. But if it doesn't exist, then it will just not. So let's see, register, it will be null. So it will be a false value. So we can do this. Const is from register equals search params dot get register. I need to log it. So if the user is from register, then we're just going to show them similar to what we did with the error is from register and so this will be a paragraph. So this paragraph is going to be similar to this other paragraph, and the difference is that it is going to be green. Account created successfully. Please log in. So this will only show if they are from register. And how do we know they're from register? If the search param register exists. If it doesn't exist, this will be null. If this is null, this will not show. Okay. So, oh yeah, we see it because right now it's there, it exists, but if we manually navigate to login and it doesn't exist, then we don't see that message. So if we come back to register and we create an account, I'm on Chrome, I don't know, Chrome 6. Date of birth, mail, 234, 34, create account. Okay, account created successfully. Please log in. All right, and now you can use those details to log in. Okay. Wow, it's been a lot, and we're still on the register. we haven't yet got to creating the actual creating the endpoint for register. But that's okay. That's okay. I think everything that we're doing so far is important. So no need rushing it. It's good to learn all of this. So what have we done so far? We have a form with some basic validation. So this is validation from the backend. The only validation that we've added on this form on the client side is the passwords, but we've said you can add validation, as much validation as you want. So you can have the validation for the input fields. You just need to check whether they are empty. So if not first name, if not last name, if not username, if not email, if not phone, if not DOB, if not gender, if not password, if not confirmed password, then that's the all fields are required. It's a bit of a hectic way to validate, but for what we're doing, it will work. And as an initial goal, you should be going for what works. Then you optimize later. So we're doing very basic validation. Once the validation fails, then we're sending a request to this endpoint. That endpoint is giving us a response. We're inspecting the response to see whether everything is okay. If it's not okay, we're throwing an error with a message from the response data. If it is there, if it's not there, then we have this default message showing up. If the error is thrown, then it's going to be caught by this block of code. We log the error, then we will set the message from the error as the message of the error. Once that is set, it is going to show up here. If there's no error, that means we will hit this point. That means that the registration has gone successfully. We shall programmatically navigate the user to the login endpoint. Once they are on the login endpoint, there will be this search parameter, register equals true, so that we can handle it and show that they are from register. And if they're from register, then we want to show the message that their account has been created successfully and that they should log in. In the event that there was an error, we want to give them the ability to enter the form again. And so we set is submitting back to false, because is submitting being true, which was done at the very top here, setting it to true disables the button. If that button is not re-enabled, then if the user has encountered an error, they will not be able to submit the form again until they refresh the page. Now that is bad user experience. So you set the submitting back to false, so that that button can then get disabled, because the logic for the disabling of the button is that is submitting is true. So if it's true, disabled becomes true. If it's disabled, you cannot use the button. If you cannot use the button, you cannot submit the form. So and unless you use the enter key. If you use the enter key, then the form can get submitted. It's a good thought. So if they use the enter key, so set is submitting to true, what will happen? So what has come to mind is if the user decides to use both the button and the enter. Actually, what happens if they just hit the enter twice? Because the enter doesn't depend on the button, but it will still trigger the form submission, because what we are handling is not the click of the button, it is the submission of this form. So the one way that I can think of solving that would be, instead of handling the submission of this form, we handle the click of the button. But then the button is it's a submit button, which means it will trigger the form submission. And if we're not handling the form submission, then the form will do that reload thing. I really do not have the capacity to think about it right now. Handling handling the like, because the idea is we need to disable this button whether they use enter to submit this form or not. If I hit enter right now, how many times is it submitting if I hit it twice? So let me clear everything. So I'm here, I hit it twice. It's actually just submitted once. Okay, that's okay. It is not, but why is it not? It's not the same as spamming the button. So you cannot spam. When the submit button gets disabled, does it also disable like this? Let me remove the logic for, I need to know this. Is it because we're disabling the button that the submission of the form is also getting disabled when we use enter? Yes. Nice. Okay. So I've removed the button submission. I mean the button disablement, and it is allowing spamming of the submission using enter. So disabling the button doesn't just disable the button, it disables the action that this button is responsible for, which is the submission of this form. Now I'll be honest and admit that I've learned that right now. It's not something that I had thought of before. I've always disabled my buttons, but then I've never really thought of the fact that they actually disabling the button also disables the submission of the form through other means, such as the enter key. Because now, if I try to submit this form by spamming the enter, it doesn't. The only way that the enter works is if the submit button is also active. If the submit is not active, the enter will also not work. The submission through enter will also not work. So it's a nice thing, because I was wondering how then you would prevent the submission through enter. So disabling the submit button doesn't just disable the button itself, it also submits the action of it also disables the action of submitting the form, the entire form. So whether you're submitting through the click of the button or the enter key. Okay, so that is what we have so far, and I'm seeing time is already not on our side. It's 11, so I think that's where we're going to reach for today. We shall tomorrow is Thursday, so tomorrow we don't have a session, but in the event that I'm able to get home early, I can just hit you up and tell you to join. We can still have the session and continue from here. So what's left is the logic for login. I'm not going to add that logic for login here because it's pretty much what we've done. With the register, you're going to handle the submission of the form. You're going to turn the inputs into controlled inputs, handle the submission of the form. In the form handler, you're going to initiate a fetch request. This time it will be to a different endpoint, the same URL, different endpoint. Now not register, but this time login. Still going to be the same method, same headers. The body will be different. This time it will not contain all of this. It will just contain, is it the username or the email? The documentation will tell you that. So let's go to the docs for login. So login expects the email and the password. So not username and password, but email and password. It will return a success of 200, okay? If the login is successful, and a message of login successful. If there's a failure, it will most likely be a 400 bad request with the success of false and a generic message of incorrect credentials, so that's the email that is wrong or the password that is wrong. So that is something that you can take what we've done with the register and implement. And this is where I always say that the moment you understand concepts, then it becomes really easy to build upon those concepts, because now the concept that we've covered right now is the submission of form data. Now we've used the registration process as a way to show this concept, but then it's the exact same concept that you would take for the login. It's the exact same concept that you take for, let's say, if you have a dashboard somewhere and what you're creating is a blog, you would have the form, you'll have the controlled inputs, you'll have the form handler. You'd send a request to the backend. It will be a post request. It will have the same headers. It will have the body data. Then the backend gets to handle that. So what we've covered is not really just registration. Okay, it is the concept of submitting data, sending data from the client side to the backend. And what we've done is it's the exact same thing that you will do no matter the kind of form you're working with. So that's why I will not be actually come tomorrow's session. I'll have already implemented the logic for login. So I'm not going to implement just the logic. See, login has a bit more logic because of the cookies and the JWT and all that, but that's mostly a backend thing. But this part for getting the email and the password and sending them over to the backend, that one will already be set up. So we shall build upon that. Then hopefully, man, we're going to get into now the backend and build the API, that we are currently consuming. So instead of just consuming it, we now get to actually build it. All right. So thank you for sticking around. And as always, this session is being recorded. I'm going to share the recording on in your group. Go through it by the next session. If you've already implemented all of this, that's good. But go through it for the sake of learning the few things that we might have done here and there that you might not have done on your project. And then we shall pick up and continue from there tomorrow. If it's not possible tomorrow, then I'll meet you in, actually it will be best if we complete this virtually. So tomorrow I'll do my best for us to have a session tomorrow before Friday's physical session. Right. Enjoy your night. We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers.